right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Herb Feaster, and I'm here with Hannah Howell. Our other partner in crime is Natasha Lindsay. Due to a family emergency, she's not able to be here today, but excuse me. Our presentation is, excuse me, open educational resources, how to leverage these resources in your course design. And we have a real informal, it's not like a full panel discussion, but we're going to be presenting almost like a panel discussion. We've got a PowerPoint here that's going to guide us where we're going to make some main points. And as we work through this, I and Hannah will probably chime in with some additional personal thoughts and ideas related to some of the topics that are on these slides. So again, we're going to be talking about OER, open educational resources, and we hope you enjoy it. So let's get started. Just a little bit of background. Both Dr. Lindsay, Dr. Howell, or both, all of us, we are part of the Master's in Instructional Technology Design program at University of North Alabama. So a lot of what you're going to be hearing about today is related to that program. So just to give you a little bit of context, our program includes a micro-credential that started in the fall of 2020. Our Master of Science in ITD was launched in fall of 2021. And as of summer 2023, we graduated 20 out of the program. We are the first master's degree to use only no cost and OER resources, I believe, in the state. And we have a Bachelor of Science degree in Instructional Technology and Design that was just approved, and we plan to launch that in 2024 in the fall. So again, just a little bit of context there. So what is OER? Open education resources include materials that are in the public domain or licensed in a manner that provide free and perpetual permission to engage in the 5R activities. I'll talk about what the 5R activities are in a minute, but I first want to further define exactly what OER is and what OER isn't, because I can tell you from previous I guess, understandings that I had about OER, I thought OER just stood for anything that was free, and that's not actually the case. There are other types of materials that are similar, such as open access, which refers to teaching, learning, and research materials that are available online for free for anyone to use as is, but they may not be revised, remixed, or redistributed. Typically, they include things like journals, books, but can also refer to other class materials. They also include government documents, articles from open access journals, reports from think tanks, things like that. Another similar type of material that is not OER are library license materials. They are free to library patrons and are subscription-based with terms and conditions of their use. And they include ebooks, print versions of books on reserve, and depending on what type of licensing and subscription service that the library has, for example, they may not be downloadable or retainable. They may or may not be accessed offline. The license may allow for 2 users or many users. It just depends, again, on the subscription that the subscriber has. While they're not free for library patrons, they have been paid for by the library. And so usually, and when I say that, they are free for library patrons in a way. Indirectly, somebody's paid for it. It usually comes from, like in the case of a college library, somebody's paid for it either through student fees, or in the case of a community library, maybe through taxes. So the final similar type that I'll describe here that is not OER is classified as affordable course content. Describes any free, low cost, or openly licensed educational resource that can serve as an alternative to high cost resources. There's been a trend lately, I know in higher ed especially, for this classification for low cost courses. And so the institutions will generally put some sort of limit on an amount of money that would classify the course as low cost, whether it's $40 or $50 or $60, whatever it is. All it means is that the designer of the course has kept the material cost for the student under a certain amount. And so textbooks, the courseware, course modules, software, videos, journal articles, whatever may go into that course has to stay under that limit in order to meet that classification. And so I've noticed over the past several years this is becoming more and more popular, and I assume because of the skyrocketing costs, particularly at the university level and in higher ed, and I assume it would be in public education or any educational environment. This is becoming more important and getting more attention to try to hold costs down. So, you have any thoughts, Hannah, on this, or?
No, I think you did a great job kind of clarifying that. Thank you.
Okay. I mentioned on a previous slide talking a little bit about the 5 R's, and you know, that was one part of the definition of what OER is. And so anything that's OER, you have the ability to retain, revise, remix, reuse, or redistribute. And so if and that's any resource that's classified as OER. So to retain, you can make, own, and keep a copy of the resource, edit, in the revised category, edit, adapt, and modify your copy of the resource. You can remix, so you can combine your original or revised copy of the resource with other existing material to create something new. Reuse it, so take the original, revise it, remix it, copy of the resource publicly, put it on a website, put a presentation in class. You can start to see with this list here that there are not a lot of limitations on what you can do with OER. And then finally, redistribute, share copies of your original, revised, or remixed copy of the resource with others, such as post a copy online or give one to a friend. So as opposed to, if any of you are familiar with fair use regulations, there are quite a few regulations that specify what is classified as fair use and what you can do with something that is copyrighted. For example, this things that are classified as OER obviously have much fewer regulations than what is copyrighted. So some myths about OER: that OER are always textbooks, that they're always online. OER are and always will be free, but not all free resources are OER. And I think that gets back to the definitions, the examples that I gave just a few minutes ago in that list of 3 items when I was talking about the materials that were not OER. Although they may be free in some instances to certain populations, they may cost libraries some money, or they may have some restrictions on how they are used. So anything come to mind, Hannah, on this?
Yeah, I think when it comes to using OER in courses, just if you have any questions about whether the resource that you intend to use qualifies as an open educational resource or is indeed free for you to kind of redistribute through your course, I would just caution you to reach out to your librarian. At the University of North Alabama, we have a specific librarian that is dedicated to open educational resources. So I think we are really lucky there, and she helps us navigate any copyright issues or anything that may come up. And we realize that not every institution may be that lucky to have someone dedicated to that. But just if there's a question, reach out to whoever handles copyright at your institution. We don't want you to hear this presentation and us talk about how wonderful using OER resources are, and you just start collecting a whole bunch of stuff and throwing it in your course. And then maybe that wasn't an open educational resource that you could use. So with anything that you put in your course, if there's a question, just be sure to reach out to whatever governing body you have to just request assistance for that.
Yeah, and I think, along with that, one of the things that you have to understand as a consumer of these materials, as an instructional designer, you have to understand what type of material that is. And sometimes it's not easy to discern exactly what it is. And so you may need some help. So, just like Hannah said, there are experts out there who know a lot more about the materials and a lot more about these definitions, because they can be very, very technical. And, as a layman, like I said just a few years ago, my understanding of OER was a lot different than what it is now. And so just be aware that it may take you it may take more than you to figure out what type of a source it is and what the restrictions are on it. So,
yeah.
In terms of pros and cons of OER, you can see that this little table here comes from a couple of sources that we've cited, but pros are lower costs for students, it's reusable, increased student satisfaction, increased student retention, higher quality courses, and high quality relationship between the SME and ID. Cons are faculty investment, because it does take some extra time, and also loss of access. I will tell a story about access that just happened to me a few weeks ago, where I ran into some issues with an OER book. It definitely is classified as OER, and it even says on at the front of it that it's an OER source, but and it was being used in a course, and for whatever reason, and I'm not sure what exactly happened. I can tell you that before the course started, I was linking to a chapter in the book, and I checked the links and everything worked. At some point in between the time I did that and the course started, somebody had reported this particular chapter and none of the other chapters in the book for a copyright violation. And so it had been pulled down, which was a problem for me, because ironically, out of all the chapters, and I think there were 20 or 22 chapters in the book, out of all the chapters that were in the book, the one chapter that I needed for a particular assignment in the course was no longer available for the students to use. And so what happened in that instance was that the students were clicking on the link, and it said the information had been pulled down for a copyright violation. It gave no indication of when it was going to come back up. So I had no idea if it was going to come back up, when it was going to come back up, how long it was going to be out. So that was a problem for me. Some of the courses that we teach here at UNA, or all of the courses that we teach in our program anyway, they're only 8 weeks long. And so when you're dealing with such short courses like that, the turnaround times on assignments can be very quick. And so I had to come up with a really quick solution. So loss of access can be a big con in certain situations, particularly when you don't have a lot of time to get a fix in place. Fortunately, I found a fix, so I got it going again. But any other thoughts, Hannah?
I'll just talk a little bit about the faculty investment side of making a course either partially or completely based on open educational resources. The amount of information that lives, I guess, in Google when you search a topic can be really overwhelming. And so as a relatively new professor who is trying to navigate building courses in this premise of open educational resources, I can kind of speak to the faculty investment and tell you that there is so much out there that you have to comb through before you find a resource that can actually achieve the learning objective that you're trying to get your students to achieve. But I will also tell you that it is so worth it, and that our students love that this program costs nothing in terms of resources. I believe it is a draw for the program, and our students stay with us because that is carried throughout all of the courses that they take. So all 10 courses that they take are all based in open educational resources, and the other resource types that we've talked about where it is no cost to students. And so for that reason, I think that our courses are of a really high quality because not only are we able to find resources that maybe are specific to visual learners, we can also add in different audio resources for our audio learners. And then we've also either created or found some activities that may reach across all different learning types. So the resources that are loaded into our courses are really meant to help students interact with the content in many different ways. And that can increase the quality of your course because students are able to see the content presented in different ways. So I would warmly caution you, I guess is a good way to put it, of the investment that you will experience up front, but the return on that investment is more than I could have ever imagined as someone who designs courses and someone who teaches those courses. So if it's something that you want to do, don't let the faculty investment part kind of scare you. Just prepare for that and know that your students will only benefit from it.
All right. We just have another slide or two to get through here. So best practices for using OER. Use the backwards design framework. Have an end goal in mind. Number 2 here, consider your audience. Make sure you're getting the resources that's going to fulfill the needs of the learners, and then consider how the resources will be shared. And finally, be flexible. I don't have anything else, I think, to add to this slide. Hannah, do you?
I think just when you consider your audience and you consider how your resources will be shared, we live in a wonderful time where technology can reach across lots of different environments. And so if you notice a resource that you have picked out, if for whatever reason is not mobile responsive or is not viewable in a certain operating system or on a certain device, my first piece of advice would be to not use that resource, to find something that could be kind of generalized across a lot of different spaces. But if that you find that you really need to use that resource, make sure that you put in a disclaimer under the resource that students can clearly see that tells them how to access that resource. It's going to be a lot less headache on the instructor teaching the course, and it will lessen the frustration for the student if you let them know up front that there are parameters that need to be met to view that specific resource. And again, be flexible. I think that goes back to our pros and cons table. And that sometimes, the nature of using open resources like we're talking about today means that sometimes they get removed and they get changed, and sometimes they generally are not accessible like they once were. And so just be ready and mindful that that could happen, like the story that Herb just shared about something getting removed. And just know that that comes with the territory of using these types of resources. But again, it's so worth it in the end.
All right, some OER resource links for you all. Textbook wise, you can hit this openstacks.org link. If you're looking for textbooks, articles, check your institutional library. They should be able to guide you related to OER articles. And then additional course resources, you can hit oercommons.org for any type of additional course resources that who knows, it might be available out there. Our resources that we used for this particular presentation are here at the end of the slide. And again, we are Hannah Howell, Herb Feaster, and Natasha Lindsay at UNA. And here's our contact information. If you have any questions or need any other information, feel free to contact us. We'd love to hear from you. Other than that, we wish you a great week, and thanks for attending or listening. Take care. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all.